Hana wiped the sweat from her forehead as she finished loading the last container of rare metals onto the transport ship. The heavy gravity of Kepler 442c made every movement feel like she was carrying extra weight. But she had grown up here. This crushing force that would break the bones of most aliens felt normal to her. The mining colony stretched out below the landing pad. Gray buildings sat under a dark orange sky filled with toxic clouds. The air burned the lungs of anyone not born here. But Hana breathed it like it was nothing special. She had been working in the deep mines since she was 12 years old. Her body was strong from years of hauling heavy equipment through narrow tunnels where one wrong step meant death. "That's the last of it," called Kim Day from the cargo hold. The 17-year-old boy was smaller than Hana, but just as tough. He had started working the mines even younger than she had. His family needed the money like most families on the colony. Hana nodded and sealed the container. Today they were taking a shipment of processed metals to the orbital station. It was routine work, but it paid well. The metals from their world were valuable because they formed under the extreme conditions that existed here. Most other planets could not produce them. The transport pilot, an older man named Park Jin, finished his pre-flight checks. He had been flying between the colony and the station for 15 years. His face was weathered from exposure to the harsh atmosphere, and his hands were steady from years of flying through the dangerous windstorms that could appear without warning. "Ready to go?" Park Jin asked as he started the engines. The ship shook as it lifted off from the landing pad. Through the small windows, Hana watched the mining colony grow smaller below them. Soon they would break through the toxic atmosphere and reach the clean space above their world. The flight to the orbital station usually took 3 hours. Hana used the time to rest and plan her next shift in the mines. She was saving money to buy better equipment. The deeper tunnels had richer deposits, but they were more dangerous. She needed tools that could handle the extreme heat and pressure found miles below the surface. Kim Day sat across from her, reading a technical manual about mining equipment. He was smart and wanted to become an engineer like Hana. She had been teaching him about the complex systems they used to extract metals from rock that was harder than steel. It took special knowledge to work safely in conditions that would kill most people in minutes. Park Jin's voice came over the intercom. "We're approaching the station. Should dock in about 20 minutes. The orbital station was a welcome sight. After the harsh conditions of the planet below, it had normal gravity and clean air. Many workers came here to rest between shifts. Hana looked out the window at the stars. Space was peaceful compared to the constant danger of the mining colony. No toxic storms, no crushing gravity, no equipment failures that could trap workers underground. But she did not want to leave her home planet. The harsh conditions had made her strong, and she was proud of what she could survive. Suddenly, alarms started blaring throughout the ship. Red warning lights flashed on the control panel. Park Jin's voice came over the intercom again, but this time he sounded worried. "Unknown ships approaching. They're not responding to radio calls." Hana moved to a window and saw 3 dark ships moving toward them. They were unlike any human vessels she had ever seen. The ships had strange angles and were covered in what looked like armor plating. They moved in a way that seemed wrong, like they were not built for human pilots. "Pirates?" Park Jin said grimly. "Veltar pirates. I've heard stories about them, but I never thought they would come this far out." The alien ships surrounded their transport. Bright beams of energy struck their hull, but instead of destroying the ship, the beams seemed to scan it. One of the alien vessels moved closer and attached itself to their docking port with a loud clang that shook the entire transport. "They're boarding us," Park Jin said. "Everyone stay calm. Don't fight them. These aliens are known for taking prisoners instead of killing everyone." Hana heard strange sounds coming from the docking port. Metal being cut or melted. The aliens were forcing their way inside. She moved away from the window and stood near Kim Dae. The boy looked scared, but he was trying to hide it. The door to the cargo area burst open with a hiss of escaping air. Strange creatures entered the ship. They walked on two legs like humans, but were much taller and thinner. Their skin was gray and covered in scales. They wore dark armor and carried weapons that hummed with energy. The lead alien pointed one of its weapons at them. It spoke in a language that sounded like clicking and hissing, but a device on its belt translated the words into human speech. "Do not move. You are now prisoners of Captain Krosk. Resist and you will be stunned." Park Jin raised his hands slowly. "We surrender. Please don't hurt anyone." One of the aliens, who seemed to be in charge, looked at the humans with interest. His eyes were large and dark, and when he stared at them, Hana felt like he was studying them the way she might study a new piece of mining equipment. "Unusual," the alien said through his translator. "These specimens appear to be in good condition, despite living on a hostile world. The buyers will be pleased." Another alien entered carrying a strange device. He pointed it at each human and watched readings appear on a small screen. When he pointed it at Hana, the device made different sounds than it had for the others. "This one shows unusual readings," the alien with the device reported. "Enhanced bone density, increased muscle mass, modified nervous system. She may be worth more than the others." The lead alien, who Hana now knew was Captain Krosk, stepped closer to her. "What makes you different, human female?" Hana said nothing. She had learned long ago that talking too much in dangerous situations usually made things worse. Instead, she watched the aliens carefully, noting how they moved, how they held their weapons, how they reacted to different things. "The silent type," Krosk said with what might have been amusement. "Zekhan will enjoy breaking her spirit. Load them all into the holding cells." The aliens forced the humans through the docking port and onto their ship. As they walked through the alien corridors, Hana memorized everything she saw. The layout of the ship, the number of crew members, the locations of important equipment. She had survived in the mines by being careful and observant. Those same skills might help her survive whatever was coming next. The holding cells were small, metal rooms with energy barriers instead of doors. Hana was separated from Park Jin and Kim Dae and put into a cell by herself. As the energy barrier activated, she sat down on the hard floor and began to think. She was no longer on her harsh home world, but she was still alive. As long as she was alive, she could find a way to survive. The aliens thought they had captured helpless prisoners, but they did not understand what it meant to grow up on a death world. They would learn. Hana had been in the alien cell for 2 days when they came for her. The energy barrier that served as a door flickered off, and 3 Veltar pirates entered. They wore the same dark armor she had seen during the capture, but now she could see their faces more clearly. Their gray skin looked rough like old leather, and their eyes were completely black with no visible pupils. The tallest alien stepped forward. His armor had more decorations than the others, marking him as someone important. "I am Zekhan, lieutenant of this vessel," he said through his translator device. Captain Krosk has given me permission to study you before we reach the auction. Markets. Hana remained seated on the metal floor. She did not respond to his words or show any sign of fear. During her time in the cell, she had studied the ship's routine. She knew when the crew changed shifts, when they fed the prisoners, and when the ship's engines cycled through their maintenance periods. The aliens thought she was just sitting quietly, but she was learning. "Stand up when I speak to you," Zekhan ordered. When Hana did not move, he gestured to one of the other aliens. The creature activated a device that sent an electric shock through the floor of the cell. The shock was meant to cause pain and force obedience. Hana felt the electricity flow through her body, but her enhanced nervous system, developed from years of working with dangerous mining equipment, absorbed most of the impact. She had been shocked by much more powerful mining tools and learned to keep working through the pain. She remained sitting and said nothing. Zekhan's black eyes narrowed. Interesting. Most species would be unconscious from that level of electrical stimulation. He made notes on a small device. Perhaps she has a defective nervous system. We should test this further. The aliens forced Hana to stand and walk to another part of the ship. They brought her to a large room filled with strange equipment. Tables with metal restraints, devices that hummed with energy, and screens showing alien symbols she could not read. It looked like a laboratory designed for experiments on living creatures. "This is where I study new specimens," Zekhan explained, as his guard strapped Hana to one of the metal tables. "I have broken the spirits of creatures from dozens of different worlds. Each species has a weakness that can be exploited." He activated a machine that began scanning Hana's body. The readings appeared on multiple screens around the room. Zekhan studied the data with obvious fascination. "Remarkable bone density," he muttered to himself. "Muscle fibers that are twice as thick as normal human specimens. A cardiovascular system that appears to be designed for extreme physical stress." He looked up at Hana. "What kind of world did you come from?" Hana stared at the ceiling and said, "Nothing." She was thinking about the mine shafts back home, where she had learned to stay calm under pressure. Panic killed miners faster than cave-ins or equipment failures. The most important skill was the ability to think clearly when everything around you was trying to kill you. Zekhan tried different approaches to make her talk. He showed her images of other prisoners being sold at alien slave markets. He described the terrible fates that awaited humans who were bought for entertainment or experimentation. He threatened to hurt her crewmates if she did not cooperate. Through it all, Hana remained silent. She watched everything and memorized the layout of the laboratory. She noted which machines were connected to the ship's main power system and which ones had independent power sources. She observed the guards' routines and how they positioned themselves around the room. On the third day of testing, Zekhan increased the intensity of his methods. He used devices that created extreme temperatures, exposing Hana to heat that would cook most aliens in cold that would freeze their blood solid. But Hana had worked in mining tunnels where the heat from the planet's core made metal too hot to touch, and she had repaired equipment in the frozen upper atmosphere where the temperature dropped far below anything most species could survive. The temperature changes were uncomfortable, but they did not break her spirit. Zekhan tried sonic weapons that produced sounds designed to cause madness in most species. But Hana had worked for years next to mining equipment that produced noise levels that would rupture normal eardrums. Her hearing had adapted to filter out dangerous sounds while still allowing her to detect the subtle changes in machine noise that warned of equipment failure. The sonic attack gave her a headache. but she did not scream or beg for mercy. "Impossible," Zekhan said as he studied the readings from his machines. "No species should be able to withstand this level of sensory assault. What are humans?" Other crew members began visiting the laboratory to watch the testing sessions. They had never seen a prisoner resist Zekhan's methods for so long. Some placed bets on how long the human female would last before she finally broke. Mock, a younger Veltar who worked in the ship's engine room, seemed troubled by what he saw. "Perhaps we should stop," he suggested after watching Hana endure another round of electrical torture. "The specimen may be more valuable if it is not damaged." Thek, an older pirate with scars covering his scaled arms, disagreed. "Zekhan knows what he is doing. Every creature has a breaking point. We just need to find hers." But as the days passed, it became clear that Hana was different from any prisoner they had captured before. She did not cry, did not beg, did not show fear or anger. She simply endured whatever they did to her while watching everything with calm, calculating eyes. Zekhan became obsessed with breaking her silence. He increased the power of his torture devices beyond safe levels. He kept her awake for days, at a time using stimulants that would drive most beings insane. He tried to break her psychologically by showing her false images of her crewmates being tortured and killed. Nothing worked. Dr. Nix, the ship's medical officer, began to express concern about Zekhan's methods. "You are pushing the equipment beyond its design limits," he warned. "If you continue at this intensity, you may destroy the specimen entirely." "She will break," Zekhan insisted. "Every creature breaks eventually. I just need to find the right pressure point." But Hana had been forged in the crushing gravity and toxic atmosphere of one of the galaxy's most hostile worlds. She had survived equipment failures that would kill experienced miners, worked in conditions that would be considered impossible by most galactic standards, and learned to think clearly under pressure that would shatter normal minds. The aliens had captured what they thought was a helpless prisoner. They did not understand that they had taken a predator from a world where only the strongest could survive. Hana remained silent because she was not broken or afraid. She was studying her captors and waiting for the right moment to show them what a human from a Deathworld could really do. As Zekhan prepared for another day of testing, Hana continued to watch and learn. Soon she would have all the information she needed, and then these aliens would discover why smart predators stayed quiet until it was time to strike. Zekhan paced around the laboratory like a caged animal. He had been torturing the human female for over a week, and she still refused to break. Every method that had worked on dozens of other species had failed completely. The human just stared at him with those calm, dark eyes that seemed to see everything. "Today will be different," he told his assistants as he prepared new equipment. "I have discovered her weakness." Hana was strapped to the metal table as usual, but this time Zekhan had brought additional screens into the room. The screens showed live video feeds from other parts of the ship. On one screen, she could see Park Jin in his cell, sitting quietly and reading something on a small device the aliens had given him. On another screen, Kim Dae was pacing in his smaller cell, clearly worried about what was happening to his friends. "You care about them," Zekhan said, watching Hana's face carefully for any reaction. "The old pilot and the young boy. I can see it in your eyes when you look at them." Hana's expression did not change, but Zekhan thought he detected the smallest shift in her breathing pattern. He had spent years learning to read the subtle signs that indicated emotional attachment in different species. The boy especially, Zekhan continued. He looks up to you like an older sister. How touching. He activated one of his devices and the screen showing Kim Dae's cell expanded to fill the entire wall. Let me show you something interesting. On the screen, 2 Veltar guards entered Kim Dae's cell. The boy backed against the wall as they approached him with restraints similar to the ones that held Hana to the examination table. "No!" Kim Dae shouted as the guards grabbed him. "I haven't done anything wrong." Hana watched the screen but showed no visible reaction. Inside her mind, however, she was calculating distances and timing. She had memorized the ship's layout during her time in captivity. Kim Dae's cell was 3 corridors away from the laboratory. The guards would need approximately 4 minutes to bring him here if they moved at normal speed. "They are bringing him to join our little session," Zekhan explained with obvious pleasure. "I have found that most species become much more cooperative when they see their companions suffering." The laboratory door opened, and the guards dragged Kim Dae inside. The boy's eyes went wide when he saw Hana strapped to the examination table and the various torture devices around the room. "Hana!" he called out. "Are you all right? What have they done to you?" For the first time since her capture, Hana spoke. Her voice was quiet and calm, with no trace of fear or anger. "I am fine, Dae. Do not worry about me." Zekhan smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Excellent. She does speak after all. Now we can have a proper conversation." He gestured to his guards, who began strapping Kim Dae to a second examination table. "Please," Kim Dae said, looking at Zekhan with desperate eyes. "She hasn't done anything to hurt you. Let her go." "Oh, but she has hurt me," Zekhan replied. "She has damaged my reputation by refusing to break under my methods. Other crew members are beginning to question my abilities." He activated several machines around Kim Dae's table. "But that will end today." Hana watched as Zekhan prepared to begin torturing the boy. She noted which restraints held her to her own table and tested their strength carefully. The aliens had designed them for creatures with normal human strength, not for someone who had spent years hauling heavy mining equipment through crushing gravity. The beauty of this method, Zekhan explained to Hana, is that you will break long before the boy does. Most species cannot bear to watch their companions suffer, even when they can endure great pain themselves. He activated the first device, sending a mild electric shock through Kim Dae's body. The boy cried out in pain and surprise. It was the same level of shock that Hana had absorbed without reaction, but Kim Dae had not spent years working with dangerous electrical equipment. "Stop," Hana said quietly. Zekhan paused with his hand over the controls. "What did you say?" "I said stop." "You have proven your point. I will answer your questions if you leave him alone." "Fascinating," Zekhan said. "So you do have emotions after all. But I think a demonstration is still necessary." He increased the power and shocked Kim Dae again, harder this time. The boy screamed and thrashed against his restraints. Tears ran down his face as the electricity coursed through his nervous system. He looked at Hana with confusion and terror, unable to understand how she had endured the same treatment without showing any reaction. "Stop it," Hana said, her voice rising for the first time. "You want information about humans? I will tell you everything you want to know." Zekhan laughed. "Now we are making progress, but I think the boy should stay right where he is to ensure your continued cooperation." He leaned closer to Hana's table. "Tell me about your homeworld. What makes humans from that planet so resistant to pain?" Hana began to speak, describing the harsh conditions on Kepler 442c. She told him about the crushing gravity that was 3 times stronger than what most species considered normal. She explained how the toxic atmosphere burned the lungs of anyone not born there. She described the mining work that required humans to survive in conditions that would kill most galactic species within minutes. As she talked, Zekhan became more and more excited. "A death world," he breathed. "You come from an actual death world. No wonder you are so resilient." He made notes on his devices. "The buyers will pay incredible amounts for specimens from such a harsh environment." "Now you know," Hana said. "Release the boy. You have no need to hurt him further." "Oh, but I do," Zekhan replied. "You see, I want to understand exactly how much punishment a death world human can absorb. And the best way to test that is to see how much you will endure to protect someone weaker." He moved back to Kim Day's table and began preparing more severe torture devices. Equipment that would cause burns, break bones, and inflict the kind of permanent damage that Dr. Nix had warned against. "You misunderstand something," Hana said, her voice dropping back to its original calm tone. Zekhan paused in his preparations. "What is that?" "You think this is about how much pain I can absorb, but that is not why I stayed quiet all this time." "Then why?" Zekhan asked, genuinely curious. "I was learning about you and your ship, studying your weaknesses, waiting for you to make a mistake." Hana tested her restraints again, and this time there was a subtle sound of metal beginning to deform under pressure. "You made that mistake when you brought him here." Zekhan suddenly noticed that the readings on his monitoring equipment were changing. The devices that measured Hana's stress levels and physical responses were showing completely different patterns than they had during her entire captivity. "What are you doing?" he demanded. "I am getting ready to show you what Death World really means," Hana replied. The metal restraints holding her left arm began to bend as she applied pressure that should have been impossible for a human to generate. Zekhan reached for the alarm controls, but he had made the same mistake that killed many creatures who encountered predators from harsh worlds. He had assumed that because she looked helpless, she actually was helpless. He had never considered that her silence might be patience, not fear, and that her calm demeanor might hide capabilities beyond his understanding. The restraint snapped with a sharp crack of breaking metal. The sound of breaking metal filled the laboratory as Hana's left arm came free from the restraint that had held her for over a week. Zekhan stepped backward, his black eyes wide with surprise and growing fear. The metal band that should have been strong enough to hold any normal human was twisted and broken like it was made of soft clay. "Impossible," Zekhan whispered. "The restraints are made from hardened steel alloy. They could hold a creature twice your size." Hana sat up on the examination table, using her free hand to work on the restraints holding her other arm. "You never asked the right questions," she said in the same calm voice she had used throughout her captivity. "You wanted to know how much pain I could endure, but you never wondered how strong someone becomes when they grow up hauling ore carts through 3.2 gravity." The second restraint snapped as easily as the first. Zekhan fumbled for the alarm control on his belt, but his hands were shaking so badly that he dropped the device. It clattered across the floor and came to rest near the wall, too far away for him to reach safely. "Guards!" Zekhan shouted toward the laboratory door. "Emergency in the lab! The prisoner has escaped!" Hana swung her legs off the examination table and began working on the restraints around her ankles. The metal bent and broke under pressure that should have been impossible for a human to generate. But Zekhan was finally beginning to understand what Deathworld really meant. Your species has lived on comfortable planets for thousands of years, Hana explained as she freed her feet. You have never had to adapt to environments that actively try to kill you every single day. You do not understand what that kind of evolution creates. The laboratory door burst open, and 3 Veltar guards rushed inside with their energy weapons drawn. They stopped short when they saw Hana standing free beside the examination table, pieces of broken restraints scattered around her feet. "Stun her!" Zekhan ordered. "Maximum power!" The guards fired their weapons simultaneously. 3 beams of neural disruptor energy struck Hana center mass, delivering enough electrical shock to paralyze a dozen normal humans. Hana staggered slightly but remained standing. Her enhanced nervous system, evolved to handle the electrical interference from massive mining equipment, absorbed most of the energy without shutting down. "That should have dropped her instantly," one of the guards said, staring at his weapon. "In confusion." "Stronger setting," Zekhan commanded. "Use the lethal power levels." But Hana was already moving. Years of working in unstable mine shafts had taught her to react quickly when her environment became dangerous. She crossed the laboratory in 3 quick steps and reached the first guard before he could adjust his weapon settings. The Veltar was taller than Hana, but his bones had evolved on a low-gravity world where physical strength was less important than intelligence and technology. When Hana grabbed his weapon arm and twisted, the joint snapped with a wet cracking sound. The guard screamed and dropped his weapon. The second guard tried to circle around behind her, but Hana had learned to be aware of threats from all directions during her years in the dangerous mining tunnels. She spun and kicked him in the center of his chest with enough force to send him flying across the room. He hit the wall with a sickening thud and did not get up again. The third guard was smarter than his companions. Instead of trying to fight the human female directly, he positioned himself between Hana and Kim Dae's examination table. "Stay back," he warned, "or I will kill the boy." Hana stopped moving and looked at him calmly. "You will not." "I will fire the moment you take another step," the guard insisted, pointing his weapon at Kim Dae's head. "No," Hana said. "You will not, because you know that if you hurt him, I will kill you slowly instead of quickly." The guard's scaled hand trembled as he held his weapon. He had seen what the human female had done to his fellow guards in a matter of seconds. The idea of making her truly angry was terrifying. Zekhan used the distraction to edge toward the alarm control he had dropped earlier. If he could activate it, the entire ship's crew would respond to the laboratory. Even this impossible human could not fight 30 armed Veltar pirates. But Hana was watching him out of the corner of her eye. When he bent down to reach for the device, she moved with the lightning-fast reflexes that had saved her life in countless mining accidents. She crossed the room and grabbed Zekhan's neck before he could touch the alarm. "Let me tell you about Deathworlds," she said, lifting the alien off the ground with one hand. Zekhan weighed almost twice as much as a normal human, but Hana held him like he was made of feathers. "They do not just make you strong. They teach you to think clearly under pressure. They force you to solve problems quickly or die." Zekhan clawed at her hand, trying to break free from her grip. But her fingers were like steel cables forged in the crushing gravity of her homeworld. "Please," he gasped. "I was just following orders. Captain Cross told me to study you." "I know," Hana replied. "And I have been studying you too. I know that Veltar have weak neck vertebrae because you evolved from a species that lived in trees. I know that a quick twist in the right direction will separate your spinal cord from your brainstem. I learned this by watching how you move and noting the vulnerable points in your anatomy. The third guard was still pointing his weapon at Kim Dae, but his attention was completely focused on the conversation between Hana and Zekhan. He had never seen anyone hold a Veltar adult in the air with one hand. I also know, Hana continued, that you have been enjoying my pain for the past week. You smile when you hurt people. You take pleasure in breaking spirits and destroying hope. I am sorry, Zekhan wheezed. I will not hurt you anymore. I will tell Captain Krosk to release all the human prisoners. Yes, Hana agreed. You will. Then, with the same calm efficiency she had used to operate mining equipment for years, she rotated Zekhan's head exactly 90 degrees to the left. There was a sharp crack, and the alien went limp in her grasp. The laboratory fell completely silent, except for the humming of the torture devices and Kim Dae's rapid breathing. The remaining guard stared at Hana in absolute terror as she gently lowered Zekhan's body to the floor. Now, she said, turning to face the guard, you have a choice to make. The remaining guard looked down at Zekhan's body, then back at Hana, then at his weapon, which was still pointed at Kim Dae's head. His scaled hands were shaking so badly that the energy weapon wobbled in his grip. What choice? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. You can lower your weapon and help me free the boy, Hana said calmly. Or you can try to shoot him and discover what happens when I stop being patient with you. The guard looked at Hana's face and saw something that made his blood run cold. There was no anger there, no rage or madness, just the same calculating expression she had worn throughout her captivity. She had killed Zekhan as easily as she might have flipped a switch, and she was clearly prepared to do the same to him. He lowered his weapon. Smart choice, Hana said. She moved to Kim Dae's table and began freeing him from the restraints. The boy was conscious but clearly in shock from watching her kill an alien with her bare hands. How did you do that? Kim Dae asked as Hana helped him sit up. How are you so strong? The same way you can work 12-hour shifts in the deep mines without collapsing, Hana replied. Our world made us this way. We just never had reason to show it before. Alarm klaxons began wailing throughout the ship. Dr. Nix had been monitoring the laboratory from the medical bay and had seen everything through the security cameras. Now the entire crew knew that their helpless prisoner had killed Zekhan and overpowered 3 guards. What do we do now? Kim Dae asked, looking toward the laboratory door where more guards would surely arrive soon. Now we negotiate, Hana said. She picked up one of the fallen guard's weapons and checked its power settings. The device was simple enough to understand, even with alien controls. Point and pull the trigger, just like the mining tools she had used for years. Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor outside, along with the clicking sounds of Veltar language. Captain Krosk's voice came over the ship's communication system. Human female, you are surrounded. Surrender immediately or we will flood the laboratory with toxic gas. Captain Krosk, Hana called out, her voice carrying clearly through the open door. I would like to discuss terms. You killed my lieutenant, Krosk replied angrily. There will be no negotiation. Then you will lose more crew members, Hana said matter-of-factly. Your weapons do not affect me the way they should. Your restraints cannot hold me. And I have been studying this ship for over a week. I know where your power generators are located, where you store your life support equipment, and which bulkheads are structurally important. There was a long pause before Krosk spoke again. What terms do you propose? Simple ones. You will release All human prisoners at the next station we reach. In exchange, I will not demonstrate what else humans from Deathworlds are capable of. And if I refuse? Hana looked around the laboratory at the advanced alien technology. Much of it was more sophisticated than the equipment she was used to, but the basic principles were the same. Electrical systems, mechanical components, structural supports. She had spent years learning how to disable dangerous equipment quickly and efficiently. Then you will discover why smart species avoid Deathworlds, she replied. Kim Day and I will disable your ship one system at a time until you change your mind. We might start with your artificial gravity generators, or perhaps your atmospheric recycling system. More clicking sounds came from the corridor as the Veltar crew discussed their options. Dr. Nix's voice joined the conversation. Captain, I have reviewed the sensor data from the past week. This human has physical capabilities far beyond our initial estimates. Her bone density is 3 times normal. Her muscle fiber efficiency is extraordinary. Her nervous system appears to be naturally resistant to electrical interference. What are you saying? Krosk asked. I am saying that we captured a predator from one of the harshest environments in the galaxy. The medical scans suggest that humans from her world would be physically superior to almost every known species. Impossible. Humans are supposed to be weak. Those are humans from garden worlds, Dr. Nix explained. Comfortable planets with normal gravity and breathable atmospheres. This one comes from what the galactic databases classify as an extreme hostile environment, the kind of world where only the strongest survive to reproduce. Kim Day looked at Hana with new understanding. That's why you never seemed bothered by anything they did to you. Compared to working in the deep mines, this was easy. Hana nodded. Pain is just information. Fear is just a warning system. Neither one helps you solve problems. Captain Krosk's voice came over the communication system again. How do I know you will not attack my crew if I agree to your terms? Because I am not interested in fighting, Hana replied. I want to go home. I want my friends to be safe. If you give us what we want, we have no reason to hurt anyone else. And if I release you at a station, what stops you from reporting our location to the authorities? Nothing, Hana admitted. But consider your alternatives. You can fight me and lose more crew members, or you can release us and move to a different sector where the authorities cannot find you. Which option seems smarter? Another long pause. Then Krosk said, Very well. We will dock at the Kepler station in 18 hours. You and the other humans will be released there. All humans, Hana clarified, including Park Jin. Agreed. But you will remain in the laboratory until we dock. Any attempt to leave that room will void our agreement. Acceptable, Hana said. She looked at Kim Day, who was staring at Zekhan's body with wide eyes. Are you all right? I think so. I never imagined that people could be so strong. We always knew you were good at your job, but this is different. Not different, Hana corrected. Just more obvious. Every human on our world has adapted to survive there. Most of us never have reason to show our full capabilities because we do not face threats like this. Over the next 18 hours, word spread through the ship about what the human female had done. The crew gave the laboratory a wide berth, and several pirates requested transfers to other vessels when they reached port. The idea of capturing humans from Deathworlds suddenly seemed much less profitable. When the ship docked at Kepler Station, Captain Krosk kept his word. All 3 humans were released with their personal belongings and enough credits to book passage back to their home system. As they walked through the docking tube toward the station, Krosk called out one last time. "Human female, what should I tell other captains about your species?" Hana paused and looked back at him. "Tell them that humans from comfortable worlds make good slaves, but humans from death worlds make terrible enemies." 3 months later, Park Jin was flying another cargo run to the orbital station when his ship's communication system picked up a coded transmission from a Veltar pirate vessel. The message was simple. "Warning to all units. Avoid ships carrying human crew from Kepler 442c. Repeat, avoid all Deathworld humans." Park Jin smiled and forwarded the message to the mining colony's security office. It was always good to know that their reputation was spreading through the criminal networks. Soon, pirates would be avoiding their system entirely, which would make everyone's job much safer. Back in the deep mines, Hana was working on a new excavation project. The crushing gravity and toxic atmosphere felt comfortable and familiar after her brief time in the artificial environments of space. As she operated her drilling equipment with the same calm efficiency she had used to break Zekhan's neck, she reflected on how much she enjoyed being home. The aliens had thought they were capturing a helpless prisoner. Instead, they had learned why smart species left Deathworlds alone. It was a lesson that would spread through the galaxy, carried by frightened pirates who had discovered what happened when you cornered a predator and hurt something it cared about. Hana was content to return to her normal life, but she knew that other humans from her world would face similar situations in the future. When they did, the aliens would be reminded once again that Deathworld humans were not victims to be exploited. They were forces of nature that happened to walk on 2 legs.